Welcome to the only wrestling podcast that covers the WWE developmental system from its inception to modern day. From OVW to MCW, the HWA, Deep South, FCW, and much more. Hosted by Brian Asbury and Mortimer Blankenship. Now let's dive into what could have been, what should have been. Welcome to Developmentally Speaking.
Hey, before we get in this episode, can you do us a favor? Will you go ahead and subscribe to the channel?
Will you ring that notification bell?
And if you would, give this video a like. Well, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the episode.
Let's talk developmentally speaking, glow up, and connecting through wrestling.
Hey everybody, I'm Morty.
And I'm Brian.
And on today's episode of Developmentally Speaking, we have Mr. Beef Wellington himself, Tyler Kluttz. Tyler, how's it going?
Hey guys, I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This should be fun.
Thank you.
We're definitely looking forward to it. It is an honor to have you on here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come talk developmental territories with us. Now, first question. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
Okay. Well, let's see. So I went to school for a business degree, and I kind of dropped out of wrestling when I was probably in ninth grade. I got more into basketball. So I'd watched it growing up, and I kind of left it behind for sports. And then at some point, my junior year of college, I just picked it up again, started watching it, and I watched it over the next couple of years, and then I graduated, went out and got a job, and realized I didn't like wearing a tie or sitting in an office. So I was going to either move to Louisville, Kentucky, and train how to wrestle, or I was going to move to LA and learn how to act. So I picked wrestling because it seemed a little less crazy, and it seemed like something. It seemed like something I could do. Combination of semi-athletics and bad acting seemed like it would be easier for me to get a handle on quicker. So that was my strategy.
It's not a bad strategy.
But yeah, so I mean, basically, I had a deeply buried seed of desiring to be an entertainer that I'd never really allowed myself to consider. So it came out after I got into the real world and realized that I hated the real world. So.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. The real world is not great. But it's not often that you hear someone say that wrestling is the less crazy of two choices. But, looking at LA and how hard it is to, find work out there, I could see that. So you moved to Louisville to learn to be a wrestler. So how did you hear about OVW from who? Well, how did you going to OVW come about?
Well, once I kind of made the decision, I just did a little research and realized that I could either go to Atlanta or I could go to Louisville and pay to be under the tutelage of the people who do it, who are associated with WWE. It never really occurred to me to just go find local wrestling and then try to work my way up in the indie atmosphere. I didn't really understand that tactic. It just made sense to me to go directly to the source.
Right.
So I don't remember precisely why I chose Louisville, but I'm glad I did because Atlanta shut down, I think, shortly after.
Right. Yeah. For sure, OVW, when it came to training and the developmental territories, OVW was probably the promised land of all the developmental territories. So you pack your things up and you move to Louisville, and you get there, and the first day you show up, you pull into the parking lot. What's the first thought that crosses your mind?
I was scared pretty shitless. I think the first time that I walked into the building, I think it was Rip's class. I think it was the intermediate class that I walked in, in on, and they were going a million miles an hour. They trained really hard, and he was very regimented. He was a drill sergeant. So I remember watching that and being pretty terrified, but I'd already invested enough getting over there, so I wasn't turning back. Um, my first week, I I trained under Tank Toland for literally 1 week, and that was pretty easy. I remember the first time I stepped in and ran the ropes. Tank looked at me and he's like, "Are you working me?" Because I guess I ran the ropes well, even though I felt pretty I felt really dizzy the first time. It was, I don't know if you ever run the ropes before, but they shake as you move, so you can't focus on the ropes or you get dizzy.
Hmm.
But I guess I did well enough that he thought that I was ribbing him. Um, but then the following week, I think it was only 1 week that Tank was there, and then I walk in the second week, and this was really the scary moment. I walked in, and Joey Matthews was sitting there, and he was not happy. Um, he had his head shaved. I don't know how long he'd been off the road.
Mhm.
I guess recently done with the Eminem gimmick. So he had come back to help out, and Joey's just a very old school guy. So not actually an angry guy, just very old school, and he's going to treat you like a rookie. And I spent the next, I guess it was 14 weeks with Joey Matthews, watching people drop like flies, just quitting left and right. We would do, we would, what was it, an hour and a half class. We'd spend the first hour doing calisthenics. We'd do over 1,000 squats in a given day. He just killed us. He killed us. Me and one of my buddies at the time, who was also starting off. I remember we would go out in the middle of the summer in the heat in Kentucky and just run around soccer fields, just trying to get ourselves prepared for Joey's class. It
Wow.
was easily the toughest thing I've ever done. And so we do an hour of calisthenics, and then we learn how to hip toss for 30 minutes, and that was the class.
Just trying
So
to
that
blow
was,
you up.
uh, yeah, it was tough, but I really, I kind of like that stuff. And after a while, he would give us some heart to heart talks about how you might not be the tallest and you might not be the biggest, you might not even be the most creative, but no one is going to outwork you, and you're going to be the toughest son of a bitch in the ring. And I always got behind stuff like that, so I deeply appreciated Joey showing up when he did, even though it was tough as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with it being that tough, and it's definitely a kind of like a two-hit combo. You have the what am I trying to say here? It's so tough that the people that make it are now solid, up above average, kicking ass workers that they know how to work. But it also
Yeah,
weeds out the weaklings. And people nowadays get real mad when you talk about that, about how everybody should have a fair shake. Well, not everybody's made for professional wrestling, and I feel like
everybody deserves everything.
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, just a story on that. I remember very vividly. We probably 6 weeks into Joey Madness, we would get in our circle and we just count off squats, and we get up over 100, we get up over 200, we get up over 500. And I remember this one particular week, this girl walked in. She was skinny, she had big implants, and you could tell immediately she wanted to be a face on TV.
Mhm.
And Joey didn't treat her any differently than anyone else. And she got in the circle and she did, I think, literally 25 squats. And she kind of walked off, went and got her water. And Joey said, "What are you doing?" And she, I need a water break. He said, "Get back in the circle or get out." And she thought about it for about 3 seconds, and she turned around and she left the building. And Joey was so proud of that, and he went into the back room. He went to tell Danny Davis about how he'd just gotten a girl with big implants and big lips to quit. Um, so that's the atmosphere that I was brought up in.
Yeah, and I may be a little old school in saying that I think that needs to happen more because especially in independent wrestling right now is so saturated with so many people that just had their hand held all the way through. So you that alone tells you that you were trained by a very intelligent trainer. I mean, they didn't. You hear all these stories of people that trainers that bullied people. That wasn't bullying. That was just teaching you to be tough as nails. And I do appreciate that for sure. Brian, you have anything?
Yeah.
So, your training and how does Beefy come about? Who came up with that?
I don't know where that came from. So I got done with Joey's class, and I didn't have tights by this point. I was just trying to survive Joey's class,
Mm-hmm.
and after those, I think it was either 3 or 4 months of that, and then I paid to get, and I got into Rip's class, and they had DCW going at the time. Um, so I was ready to go, except I didn't even have gear. So my very first, do you guys not know my very first gimmick? Do you have any idea? It didn't last very long. I uh, I had a Halloween costume that I'd worn for like 3 years in a row. It consisted of a black tracksuit and a do rag and a black Sharpie and some white or some sunglasses, and I was Ali G. And this is what I did for Halloween for like 3 straight years. It was a fantastic costume, and so I didn't have anything else, so I wore this to my first show, and I was actually Ali G for like a month, and I would cut Ali G promos in class for Rip, and Rip thought it was the best thing he'd ever seen,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
and all the boys were well, some of the boys were kind of mad because I was just like doing Ali G, but Rip had no idea who Ali G was. He just thought it was phenomenal. So I did
Oh,
that for like I did that for like a month as we figured out what we were gonna do next, and there was rumors about starting a fraternity, and so a couple other guys were doing that, and that was easier because I didn't. I just had like some little boy shorts and some collared pink t-shirts, um, and just turned into a frat guy. And Brent Wellington sounded like an awesome uh, jerk jerk
yeah.
off frat boy. And
Oh
Yeah.
then
yeah.
someone said, I think, yeah, someone said, "Oh, beefy," and so I just went with it. And I didn't even know the other Beef Wellington at the time. I didn't even know that guy existed. So I just went with Beef Wellington.
That's awesome. I like
So,
that.
so how would you describe your time uh, in OVW when you became Beef Wellington? Because you had a nice little run there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. By the way, you asked me the first time I walked in the building. It was Rip's class because I remember going up and timidly introducing myself to Rip, and I stuck out my hand, and I was so nervous. I said, "Hey, Kip, I'm Tyler," and it took him like 10 seconds to realize that I just called him Kip Rogers, and he went off on me a little bit, and he said, "This motherfucker," and he said I look like somebody, and he meant it as a great insult. I'm pretty sure, but I can't remember who he said I looked like. But he just started going off on me.
I'm
But
sure.
I don't think he remembered that at all. By the time I was Ali G, he had forgotten all about that one.
I don't
But I had a sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I'm just saying. I don't know. Rip remembers the most random things. We may ask him sometime and be like, "So, Beef Wellington. He called you Kip. What was that all about?" We'll see what he says. But he's.
I just hope he remembers me.
Oh,
I
I'm
remember
sure
one
he
time
does.
I came back when I was at OVW. I would do the Dolph Ziggler leg slap on the drop kick. I incorporated that for a little while, and I came back and I had a big red handprint on the side of my leg, and Rip said something like, "You're the man, Beefy," and I couldn't tell if he was. Surely he was being sarcastic, but I couldn't quite tell. But I do think that he probably liked me from Mally G on. Um, but I also got really lucky because we went straight into like a year-long feud with the Mobile Homers.
Mm-hmm.
You remember those guys?
Yep.
uh,
And
Ted
those
Naylor
guys,
and Adam Revolver, right?
yeah, Man
Man
Beast,
beast.
yeah, Man Beast could cut the best promos, and both of them could work their asses off. They would do hour-long tag matches in practice all the time. I don't know why the hell for just so we could watch their greatness, I guess. Um, they were incredible. They were two of the best workers I've ever witnessed. So we got to work with them for like a year straight, and I'm also getting to be part of the stable, so it's taking a lot of pressure off of me being in tag matches. So it was an awesome start.
Mhm.
And then Gavin, what was Gavin's last name? Well, Gavin got signed
Was
after a
that
little while, so then it was just
was it Fletcher?
yes.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it Fletcher? What was it?
I just remember
Gavin
Fletcher.
Gavin Garrison.
Yeah, he's got the red hair, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So after a little while, he was really good, and he got signed, and then it was down to me and Moose after a while.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to roll into a fun program. Um, yeah, I got a really nice education, pretty low pressure, being having my hand held by the best, really the best in the business. And Joey Matthews will always be as good as it gets, in my opinion. And he's kind of always been around
Mm-hmm.
throughout my career, kind of scolding me or helping me. So I learned so much so quickly from him and the mobile homers
Mm-hmm.
pretty early on.
So, how did your developmental deal come about?
Um, well, John Laurinaitis came and did a workshop at some point, and that went okay. I don't think that had any bearing. And then FCW held a 3-day seminar workshop thing where you could pay to go down to Tampa and try out for 3 or 4 days. So I forgot what I paid for that. It was probably like $1,000. Uh, and I remember pretty much everyone else was like, "Fuck that! I'm not paying money. It's a gimmick. It's a work." They didn't want to do that. So, but me and you guys remember Teddy Bruschi,
I got a brewski.
right?
I
Yeah.
got a brewski.
Or I got a Bruschi. Teddy
Mm-hmm.
Bruschi is the Patriot. Yeah, I got a Bruschi.
I got a brewski.
That
I was just talking about him the other day. I'm like, whatever happened to I got a brewski? Oh
God, that
man,
maniac. There's no telling. He could. I don't know. He was
God, that
he
guy
was
was
insane.
huge.
He was a maniac. He was a
Oh,
cool guy, but he could go a little bit crazy sometimes.
okay. It fits the gimmick.
So me and him shared a hotel room for 3 or 4 days while we were in Tampa, and uh, and so we did this 3-day thing, and I think I fared pretty well. Not great, but I was well above average, I would say. And then after that, I guess they had me in their books. So every time Raw came in the area, I'd be an extra. They'd call me up, and then again, Joey, giving me some helpful hints, said go find the Brooklyn Brawler and cut a promo for him when you're at TV. And so I did. I went and found Brawler, and he said, now just to make sure, I'm gonna take you back there and we're gonna do this promo, but you gotta knock my socks off. So if you don't think you're ready, let's wait. We'll do it next time because you gotta knock it out of the park if you want a real shot here, and we'll do this. And Brawler was such a cool guy, but I said, you know what? I'll wait till next time. And so I waited another 3 months till they came back in wherever they were, and I just went home and I started cutting promos in front of a camera for hours every day. I was a personal trainer at Life Fitness, I think it was, or Lifetime. No, I can't remember the name. It's like an LA Fitness now. Uh, I come back after training my morning clients, and I'd just cut promos. Or I'd cut the same promo like 50 times a day, and I'd watch it back, and I'd try to make it more dynamic, uh, and more dramatic. And then finally, I saw Brawler again. I said, "I'm ready," and I cut this promo for him, and he said, "That was pretty good." And he gave me some hints on how to make it more dynamic and have the highs and lows and slow the tempo and speed it up and talk low and then get loud and bring it around. And so I went home for probably another 3 months and worked on it again and worked on it more and more. And then finally, this one particular Raw, I found Brawler for a third time, cut a promo, and he said, that was one of the top three promos I've ever heard in this room. And he said, like, he mentioned MVP. I think he said Mr. Kennedy. And he said, and that one. And from that moment on, so he went and he put me over to John Laurinaitis real big. And then I got in with Laurinaitis at Raw, and he was kayfabing me too. He was kind of a dick when he was running talent relations.
Someone else said
But
that
yeah,
that we
yeah,
interviewed.
it's the weirdest. He'd really give you the cold shoulder,
Hmm.
which is weird because when he stopped that and he just became an agent, he was the coolest guy. So
Weird.
he was just working extras, I think, just making it tough. And so he said, yeah, Brawler said you cut some kind of promo that he was really impressed with. Why don't you do that for me? And I'm just sitting in his office, and it was him and Ty Bailey. And I'm just nervous as shit. I
Mhm.
said, yeah, right now? He said, yeah, go ahead. I said, where do you want me to, where should I look? I said, fine, Ty. And he didn't even answer me. So I just started this promo, and I even left out. I remember leaving out part of it. I was so nervous, and I was basically just on autopilot. But I guess I had done enough. He's like, yeah, that was okay, and dismissed me. And I didn't get signed that day. Um, oh man, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Asher Knight got signed that day. Do you guys remember Asher? He didn't last. He didn't stay very long, and he got signed. Very nice guy. Um, Turned
Hmm.
into Rudy something at FCW, and he didn't last there all that long either. But I
Hmm.
was pretty pissed that he got signed because I thought, well, I'm
Mhm.
better than that guy in every fucking way,
Mhm.
and he got signed. So I was just pissed as I could be. Went back, did some more personal training for like 4 months, and then Ty Bailey called me out of the blue one day. He said, "Yeah, we were thinking about that promo that you cut at Raw that in Johnny's office, and that was pretty damn good." And I'm on the phone like, you're right now. You just been thinking about that promo I cut 4 months ago. So yeah, they just I don't know. They probably had a quota. They'd already met it. Whatever happened, they just kayfabe me. And so he offered me the contract over the phone just out of the blue one day. So that's how that came about.
That must have been validation for you for all your hard work, and they're finally realizing what they had in front of them.
It was yeah, it was definitely exciting, and I do over that time period when Joey said you're gonna have to cut a promo for Brawler, and then Brawler pushing me to be dynamic. It was that time frame where I got pretty good at cutting a promo. just putting in tons of work on my own in front of my camcorder in
Mhm.
my apartment because I was terrified up until then. God, in Rip's class, I mean, even doing the Ali G gimmick, just terrified, just absolutely terrified. And so it was that little stretch, getting pushed a little bit, that
Mhm.
kind of turned a corner for me. So I think it came around at the right time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it felt good.
So how was that transition from what you were used to at OVW to FCW? Because a lot of people say it's like two different worlds.
Yeah, first of all, I remember always used to bitch and complain about the guys, the contracted guys,
Mhm.
because they would always complain about their lives, and we were just like, fuck these guys. They're getting
Mhm.
paid to wrestle,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they're getting paid pretty well to do it, and they're living on the beach. So when I got to OVW, WWE pulled out like 6 months into it,
Mhm.
maybe less, and moved down to Tampa. So
Mhm.
I'd been around a bunch of the guys who'd been around the contracted guys because they were mixed back then, the contracted and the non-contracted. So they knew plenty of guys who were under contract, and everyone had their complaints. So we complained about them complaining. Um, but there's certainly way more pressure once you get down there,
Mhm.
and everyone's fighting a lot harder to stay signed. There's no slowing down. I remember Joey told me after I got signed, he said something along the lines of, every time you level up, you've got to work harder. It doesn't get easier; it
Mhm.
gets harder.
Right.
And yeah, I definitely I wish that I had. I mean, I had a lot of fun at OVW.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. You never know when you're in the good times. That's like the oldest
Yeah.
story in the book. So I got when I got to FCW, I was nervous all over again, and I've always had this thing where when I see people who are in a position that I perceive to be above me, like contracted guys, and I'm uncontracted. So I got signed, and I pulled up the FCW website, and I'm looking at all these headshots of these guys. Like, damn, all these guys are jacked. They're
Mhm.
huge. They look awesome. I bet they are awesome. I'm thinking all these terrible thoughts, and then I got to FCW, and half of these guys didn't know what they were doing at all.
Mhm.
So it's funny. I always build competition up in my mind. Um,
Yeah, that's I think that's a typical thing for people that almost for like perfectionists to do because I know that's probably I'm I try to be a perfectionist to a fault sometimes, and I know one thing that I always think is, man, because I do manage. I'm a professional wrestling manager, and like, oh, that guy, he cut a way better promo than me, or stuff like that, and who's to say who really did the better promo? But in my mind, everybody's always better at everything than what I do. Um, so I kind of understand that. You almost psych yourself out before you even get there. Um,
yeah, it's such a tough thing to stay focused internally and to direct your focus in an appropriate way, because you either compare yourself to other people and you fail, or you start succeeding, and then you're getting like a false sense of confidence. And I know for me that kind of turned me into a bit of a jerk, gaining that confidence that was all just phony, and it never feels good anyways, because every week you're trying to prove yourself. Well, you got a good promo this week, and the pressure's on the following week. You're always trying to keep yourself on that mantle that you've created for yourself. So that's one thing that I definitely did not have a handle on, was my own focus. I was getting good, and I was gaining confidence, but I was not properly focused. And I think probably what happened to me is maybe it's what happens to a lot of guys, where fear is taking over
Mhm.
more than the love of why you started in the beginning. You start to lose the reasons why you were supposed to be doing it, and you're succumbing weekly to the fear mongering.
Oh yeah. All that. I couldn't imagine being in that position, going down there doing that, fighting. Because I would assume, like you were saying, everybody's fighting for a spot. Now that you're signed, you're there, and then now there's 30 other people. I always feel like it would be hard because they'd be nice to your face, but then they want your spot, and then you know what I mean. Like that's how I feel like developmental could be sometimes.
Well, and I mean, yeah. I mean, I was around a bunch of really cool guys. First of all,
Hmm.
at FCW, a bunch of cool guys, and I'm sure the time frame that I was in there, better group of guys than maybe it ever been. I don't know, cool guys, but there's the pressure definitely turns people inside out.
Hmm.
And when I was at OVW, I made great friends there, lasting friends. And I was a cooler person to be around and just had the funnest matches and the funnest programs with people like Jamin Olivencia.
Hmm.
Just had the time of my life. And I don't think that I retained any friends from FCW. And not that that's on anyone other than me. I think I just kind of lost my way and got caught up in it and
Hmm.
stopped being myself and just not being as fun to be around because I'm so uber focused on in my competitive nature. Yeah. But when I first got there, Dr. Tom was leading
Mhm.
the school, Dr. Tom Pritchard,
Hmm.
and he was such a cool guy. So when I first got to FCW, it was still kind of the Wild Wild West, where
Hmm.
you could get away with stuff, and you could still work some carny matches in
Hmm.
there, and you could still have fun on the house shows. And I did some carny ass matches. I kept that. I kept that in my tool belt when I got to FCW. I did some stupid shit. I got away with some stuff too, and some stuff I didn't get away with. At one point, I did the Brad Maddox reality television show, and they got kind of mad at me for that because I started like I'd use a guy who's supposed to be doing like security for house shows or whatever. So I pulled one guy to be my cameraman, and then after a while, I pulled another guy to be my boomstick guy. And then after, and then there's one show, and I got some pretty good heat for this. I pulled one guy just to bring out a clothes rack, and I just made my entrance, and I took off my jacket and I put it on the rack, and that guy exited stage right. So I just did stupid shit like that, and Alfred got pretty mad at me for that one, and and so then
That's
that
so
that
funny.
was a great gimmick. That was a fantastic, would have made money gimmick. Joey had had gotten signed to be a trainer at FCW by then, and he was like, "This is your, what did he say? This is your fur coat." And he was talking about when, he could work his ass off, but finally he got they did the Eminem gig, and that was his ticket. So he rode that ticket, and he's like, "This is your fur coat." And so I had this Brad Maddox reality television show, and I had my cameraman, and Briley Pierce was my cameraman. And then I had a match against Titus O'Neil, and it was around the time where a couple of people had gotten concussed in like back-to-back matches, I think. And so we have an opening match at a house show, and I'm trying to think of a way. How can I have a match against Titus O'Neil where we don't even touch? And keep in mind we're the opening match, and I come from
I love it.
an old school background like Joe Matthews, Rip Rogers, Eddie Davis. Opening match, you go out, you put on a show, and you don't do false finishes, and you don't leave the ring, and and you don't do anything too spectacular, and you do some good technical wrestling, and you get the crowd moving.
Yep.
And I came out for this show. I don't remember where it was in Florida, and my only goal was to not touch Titus O'Neil. So
I love it
so
so
I
much.
came out. I came out with with Briley as my cameraman, and I had this big guy that I had put in a like a onesie. I can't put him in a suit, and he's holding a boomstick. And we ran some kind of spot where I called him up to distract Titus, or no, I called Briley up to distract Titus, and then I stripped like the jumper or onesie off of the boomstick guy, and I put it on. I'm on the outside of the ring, and then I send him in his underwear. And this was all brilliant in my mind, and I took the boom, and so it's like I was filming the match then, and so I wasn't even a part of the match. I thought, oh, this is brilliant. This is going to be funny. I'm not going to touch Titus, and it took way too long, just way too long, because he had to take off this jumpsuit. I had to put on this jumpsuit, and Briley's in the ring trying to distract Titus for like a minute, and at some point, Dr. Tom stands up and crosses his arms and yells out in front of everyone there, "Go home!" Oh shit! So we like quickly wrapped the match up. I took some kind of bump and it hurt. And then we got to the back, and Tom was already there cussing me out. What the fuck was that? And he cussed me out. And then like the next day, came in for practice at FCW, and they called me into the office, and Dusty was in there. He's like, "I think we're gonna take a break on the Brad Maddox reality gimmick for a little while." And that was like the end of that gimmick, and I was so sad.
Dang.
Yeah.
All of that sounds like pure gold. I'd have loved it.
I would have loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, this was old school FCW before everything changed.
Mm-hmm. So overall, how would you describe, FCW, and how did you become Brad Maddox? I don't think I asked that. How'd that name come about?
My very first week there, the very first house show at FCW at that
Mm-hmm.
building, I guess I came in with a pretty good reputation because I'd been OVW champion. It's like it's Danny Davis, it's OVW. This guy must be good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably they thought I was better than I was for sure. And they put me in a match the very first night against Ty. Oh God, I can't remember his name. They put me in a match the very first night, and I didn't even have a name. Barely had. I still barely had wrestling gear. And I said, "Gosh, shit, I don't know. I like the name Maddox because I'm a Braves fan.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Maddox is like my favorite pitcher." And then the ring girl, she was there, like writing this down so she could announce me. I said, something Maddox, I guess. And she's like, "You look like a Brad." And I said, "Okay, yeah, that'll work. Cool." And that was it. That was it. No great story at all.
You look like a Brad.
That's literally, she said, "You look like a Brad." I said, "All right, cool."
There you go.
I had no opinion. I've never been very creative at like, I don't know, my own gimmick.
Right.
Paid off.
Yeah, for sure. So with FCW, you said there was a lot of competition to get to the top, uh, which makes sense. But did you ever feel, and without naming any names, of course, did you ever feel that there was, I don't know, not dissension, not clicks? Were people like out to stab each other in the back, or was it just
at
competitive?
at FCW?
Yes.
No, I never felt that. I don't I don't recall anything like that. Uh, Not really.
It was just very competitive.
Yeah, I me and my own competitive nature, oftentimes I'd feel internally like, this guy doesn't deserve to be in the spot he's in, or this guy doesn't deserve to be in the spot he's in. but nobody was. I didn't think. I didn't think anybody was like that.
Yeah. That's what you'd hope to hear. We hear different things from different people. I always like to know, because we hear a lot of people explain OVW as the greatest times of their life. That John Cena explained it like it was Camelot. You know,
Hmm.
but when it comes to FCW, people, they never come out and say that people stab each other in the back, but you always do hear about that competition at FCW. So I was just curious if there was ever any type of, like, of that, but I'm glad to hear that there wasn't. I like the fact that it was um
Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't think
replacement.
there was.
It's awesome.
And if I ever felt anything like that, I tried to just turn it into usable storyline. Like
Mm-hmm.
at one point, my gimmick was I was a first generation superstar, and so when I was working Richie Steamboat, that was pretty fun. But I always felt like that chip on my shoulder if I didn't come from uh, from anywhere.
That
So
is so good.
I was gonna really put it over, and we had a really fun a fun thing, and Ricky was there, and he was kind of part of it the whole time, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. But I'm sure that guys were shit talking each other a little bit. It wasn't completely a wide open brotherhood,
Right.
maybe necessarily, but I thought everyone was very cool. Bray Wyatt, and some of the older guys, very cool guys. Like some of the coolest guys. Like Bray was one of the absolute coolest guys I ever met. I just never got really close with everyone either, which is probably has as much to say about me as anyone else. But
Well, I do have to say that in our hearts, you will always be Beef Wellington. That is the, what
God,
I remember,
Mm-hmm.
watching OVW and just thoroughly enjoying it, because back then OVW was professional wrestling more so than what we thought. I speak for myself. I say OVW was more professional wrestling than the main product at the time. And, so thank you for
yeah,
everything you did there and everything you've
yeah.
done past there. We do appreciate you and you as a
Mm-hmm.
wrestler, and just thanks for everything you did.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys doing this podcast that you're doing. I think it's really cool, and I saw that you cover guys like Rob Conway and Nick Dinsmore, and those are
Mm-hmm.
two of the guys that were there
Hmm.
when I
Mm-hmm.
first got there. That were helping, that were leading the way, and God, yeah, I was. I don't know. Is Rips still there?
No.
No, I don't. Not recent.
Okay.
I think the
Mhm.
last 2 years. Usually when we go do we'll go do conventions and stuff, and we'll take Rip with us.
Mhm.
And I don't. I've never asked, but I know that like the last I think 2 years he's not been down there.
Hmm. Yeah, that's too bad that they're moving away from that because there's a certain level of storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't require 20 false finishes or no selling major moves. And I thought it was more captivating.
Well,
And
they.
it was really fun. It was really fun to know the technical aspects of it inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
In Rip's class, he'd have like he's like two in the ring, and then you'd have to do 30 different pins in
Right.
succession, which is extremely, first of all, physically tough,
Mm-hmm.
and then mentally draining, trying to recall all this stuff on the fly while being blown up. It was just incredible training, and I certainly never got that level of training ever
Mm-hmm.
again. I mean, we'd run drills and guys would be clapping like in unison the entire time. The his practices that he ran were pretty remarkable.
I
Well,
think.
they did hire Doug Basham, right, to do that
Mm-hmm.
now. So Doug is the head trainer down there now.
Okay, okay. I mean, I
So
haven't I haven't been there in forever.
I remember Chris Cage telling a story that when we interviewed him that Rip would make him do rolls and stuff and lock up for like an hour and a half. And I guess the reason that he did that was so he could drive and go pick up his son and come back. So everybody was still working the whole time he was gone, but nobody knew where he went.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh man, yeah, there were some really fun drills. You would just I mean, we'd have one where you would just lock up and then you'd work against another person, and you've got like 20 pairs all just working some chain stuff, and we'd do that for like an hour, and it was almost like it turned into an artistry where you kind of be nervous, like what the fuck, yeah, I'm like working the
Hmm.
arm and doing an arm wringer and not knowing what to do, and after a while you just like you get caught up in it, almost like an artist getting caught up in their painting or something, and stuff would open up after a while
Hmm.
because we'd do it for like 45 minutes to an hour, and every now and then I'd get to go pair up with somebody who actually knew what they were doing, and helping lead me. But yeah, you'd get lost in it after a while, and it would really open up a level of artistry, which is, I'm assuming, I mean, I don't watch the product, but, but last I checked, there's not too much calling it in the
Hmm.
ring and feeling the crowd. And I mean, if there's one thing Cena was great at, it was listening
Hmm.
and appreciating the crowd and letting them be the wave that you ride as you're out there.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so there's quite a bit of the art that's probably being lost right now.
If you could give anybody any advice on getting into professional wrestling, what would you tell them?
Uh,
And be as honest as you want.
hmm, try to try to, I don't know. I mean, how do you try to remain? I guess it's like a daily process. You got to remind
Hmm.
yourself of why you're doing it, and staying focused, because there's so many things to lose yourself to.
Hmm.
And I never had any drug problems or pill problems or alcohol problems. I never had anything like that. But it's also like just a super high testosterone environment, and
Hmm.
like I had some different addictions. Like I had a sex addiction, and shit that just really got in the way and got me unfocused,
Hmm.
and was one of the reasons where it seems like I almost got like continuously got worse until I got on TV, and it was like the worst product of my entire career was on TV. Uh, but I was so lost by that point, and I guess the higher you climb the mountain, the easier it is to get unfocused. Maybe, I
Hmm.
don't know, but definitely have to retain that focus on the love of what you're doing, because if you start to lose yourself to fear, it's a slippery slope that
Hmm.
I found unnavigatable. Even though as I was sliding right down it, every step of the way, I thought I can navigate this, and then there just came a point when I was just completely lost, and so I guess that's what I might throw out there.
Well, I'd like to thank you for everything you've done.
Yeah.
For professional wrestling. We got to see you start in OVW to FCW to WWE. So it was an honor to watch you progress. Throughout the years.
I appreciate the kind words. You don't have to go. You don't have to take it too far. I don't think I
Oh
left an
no,
indelible mark
no.
on the industry, professional wrestling. I mean, for God's sakes, I was Ali G.
Well, I mean, you may you may think that, but I can tell you that there's two people here that Beef Wellington is one of the most memorable characters from OVW for me, and I could say that for him too.
This man loves Richard
I
Cranium
appreciate
too.
it. Oh well, shit. I mean, that guy. If I, you know what, if I ever had, here's my advice: whatever gimmick you do at OVW, take that with you to WWE. I wish that
Hmm.
I had tried the frat boy gimmick one more time. I wish I
Hmm.
hadn't let that die. That's the one I wish I had taken with me.
Well, once again, thank you so much. And we're not going to take any more of your time. Thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us. And you have a good one, okay?
Yeah, guys. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Hey, everybody, it's Morty.
It's Brian.
And thank you for watching today's episode of Developmentally Speaking.
If you could, please click that subscribe button.
And don't forget to punch that bell icon so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a new video every Monday. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And we'll see you on the next
Developmentally Speaking.